day, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 12th, 2024. Uh, I'm here with Caleb Stroup, the CEO of Headwater Gold. Headwater put out some results today, also put out some results yesterday. We're going to take a quick walk through both of these set of results. There were some more good holes at Spring Peak, which is shaping up. Nothing amazing at Midas North, although Caleb is going to walk us through that. And there's still certainly, I mean, they didn't kill it. I guess it's a short way to put it. And they know more now about vectoring than they did before. But you can decide which order you want to walk through these in, Caleb. I'm fine either way.
Okay. Well, we can start with Spring Peak. That's the news
Okay.
that dropped this morning. Are you able to see my screen
Yep.
and this release
Yep.
there? Okay.
Yep.
Great. Yeah. So as you said, more positive, good results out of this thing. We continue to drill a long strike in the main structural corridor that we identified in drilling last year, and are basically hitting the structure and veins with every hole. And there's several sort of sweeter spots emerging that have broad intervals of this sort of 1 to 3 gram material with higher grade cores into them. So, I mean, maybe it's worth just a bit of a reminder on the history of this program at Spring Peak and how it fit into sort of our big year of drilling in 2023. So in aggregate in 2023, we drilled 4 different projects, about 17,000 meters. This one was the by far the focus of the amount of meters in the ground at Spring Peak. And what we ended up doing is expanding off of a single fence of drilling that we drilled in the previous year, 2023, or 2022 rather, where we made a new vein discovery underneath a barren center. But it was 4 holes on one section through what we thought was a through-going structure at the property scale. And now this year, we went back and drilled about 20 holes along this main, what we call the disco zone here, this main through-going corridor. And this is the long section view of our drilling this year. And as I said, we've hit it basically with every hole we drilled into it. We understand the geometry, and the 2 holes that we announced this morning are 2 of the up dip holes, higher up in elevation than a lot of the other drilling, and have 2 of the better intercepts. We're looking at in both cases about 40-meter drilled thickness of mineralization, between 1.5 grams and 2 grams over that width, with some higher grade core to that as well. 10 to 12 meters of 4 to 5 grams in that higher grade core. And it depends on how you cut the composites. We use a 2-gram cutoff for these included intervals, but you could go even a little bit tighter on that and get something like 3.5 to 4 meters at 9 to 10 grams in both of these holes. So there's both a broader case for a 1 to 3 gram say scenario here, or still a high grade core to it. This is what that looks like on a single cross section through here, where we have those 2 holes plotted up, showing it's totally open to surface at present. And this also illustrates the nature of these epithermal systems, where we're still understanding the geometry of the higher grade and wider intervals along this structure. But you can see these are a couple of holes we announced previously, where you may have looked at those and said, okay, it's closed off to surface, 12 meters of just under 1 gram. That's probably it. But we had some reasons to believe that it was still open up dip, and drilled those 2 holes. And as I said, 2 of the better intercepts in this shallow environment up here. And this also shows, there's a lot of gold kicking around the system, where even in some of the upper portions of these holes, 27 plus meters of almost 1 gram of gold hanging out in the hanging wall here that we still don't fully understand that could potentially represent a stacked vein, the upper portions of a stacked vein system out here. Could be, some sort of linking splay to another anesthetic feature. We really don't quite know yet, but it's positive in any respect that we have gold not just restricted to this structure, but kind of floating around in the bigger picture here as well.
Now, if you look at the long section that you were looking at before, I, I mean, maybe I'm just reading things into it, and my brain's forcing a pattern like human brains will do. But it looks to me like you've got a kind of got a chute in the middle there, near sort of near where the cross section is. You got a couple of you got a couple of high grade hits that are kind of off by their lonesome in each direction. I mean, shoots is what you would expect here, right? I mean, normally these kind of systems, it's not going to be like this big honking consistent panel. I mean, you may get a big panel of mineralization, but within that, most of the gold's going to be in shoots.
No, so that's exactly what you expect, and that's one of the main things that this program was designed to help us zero in on is what are the geometries of the higher grade shoots, what's controlling that, and how can and usually these don't form in just one single shoot. There's a
Yeah.
series of shoots. So once you can understand those geometries, you can start better predicting where you go from one of these sort of isolated hits here. Okay, well, what directions would you begin to start chasing this thing? And broadly, I think you're correct that we're seeing a central corridor here that has some higher grade material in it. You're seeing potentially something opening up along here, and there's a couple of things that play into this. I don't want to get too into the weeds in the technical side, but one of the very positive things we're seeing along this structure is the presence of 5 to 10 plus gram material almost everywhere along strike in it. And what we see in some of these areas in the central area, I mean, I call it the central area. It's really where all the drilling is. So we don't know quite yet, whether this is the case that this is the main area. You could drill a couple more holes out here and this could look a lot different. But what we're seeing in some of these better intercepts is more dilation and more vein material. We still have good grades, but locally along the plane of this fault, there's sort of waves and jogs, and when you get those, you get more dilation, more opening up in the vein, and better intercepts. There's restricted areas like this that didn't have quite that amount of dilation, but then it potentially appears to be opening back up on the other side. So that's in vein systems in general. That's always the key, is to begin to identify what's controlling these things and then continue to move along and drill more holes along strike and down dip and put that picture together. So what we're seeing so far is, quite positive in both respects. We see local dilation forming shoot type geometries with high grade gold. We see the presence of high grade gold basically along this full, say, 400-meter drilled extent of this main panel here, and plenty of room opening up in both directions. As you can see, this is even just a small, say 2.5 kilometer long segment of this controlling structure, which we call the bear fault. But this persists for several kilometers beyond in both directions on the property, and is obviously one of our main structures we're targeting in the future here.
So, I mean, what's what's the logical way to advance this uh, in 2024?
Yeah, so there's a few places. So, I mean, this year, as I said, was focused on the disco zone. Well, first of all, before we drilled this panel, we had a single fence of holes. We didn't know for sure that we understood the geometry of this at all. It could have been striking in multiple different directions. Now we figured that out. we realize that we, can accurately predict where this structure, extends in all dimensions. There's some low-hanging fruit to extend this within the zone at depth. And one of the things I'm quite interested in is what we're seeing here, and this section exemplifies this, is things that actually appear to be opening up in a dilational perspective toward surface, and there's no indications that things are shutting off in terms of grade quite yet. So there's plenty of up dip potential here. There's still down dip potential, chasing some of those individual higher grade hits along strike, and then beginning to step out more at the property scale where we can drill that bare fault structure, that through going structure, in bigger step outs. We've really only got one broad step out, which was a 400-meter step out we drilled this year, and that hit gold in veins. It hit several intervals above a gram per ton gold, nothing over 5 grams, but it was just a single shot 400 meters away that hit the structure where we predicted it, hit veins, evidence of dilational veins within there, and gold grades that you don't just see every day. You don't see a zone of, I think that was about 60 meters of just under 200 ppb gold, which is, fairly impressive when you just wing a hole, nearly half a kilometer away from any other drilling. So that's a positive indication that we still have a lot of work to do along strike, and that'll be a focus of this year, as well as we're learning a lot about the geometry of the sort of more localized controls in the higher grade. So trying to apply that at the property scale too, to look for subtle fault inflections that correspond to favorable geochemistry and alteration in other structures that we can target moving forward as well. So we're putting together, basically as we speak, a proposed follow-up program for next year that'll look something fairly similar to what we did this year. A relatively large program by most junior company standards, moving this thing along. Obviously, we just got the final results from last year's drilling. We drilled up through about December and got the final results in over the last week or so. So, we're putting all the final pieces together and getting ready for another busy year.
And now, I mean, you've gone from talking to Newcrest to talking to Newmont, sort of. I mean, I know it's some of the same guys. Um, I know you don't know yet. I mean, they've got their process for internally setting budgets, but I mean, you are you getting any feedback from these guys at all? I mean, what's your sense?
Yeah, so I mean, although these are the final results for the whole program, we've had incremental results through the year that have been equally as positive. So there's definitely positive feedback coming out of the Newmont side of things, and as you alluded to, a lot of our original Newcrest contacts have come over. It's been a fairly seamless transition from the partner side. So really, we're marching ahead pretty much the same way we had previously. And we've now got all the results in to finalize that, budget proposal process, and that those mechanics are in motion. The exact timing and details of that are, beyond my control and beyond my knowledge of exactly how the inner workings work. But I'm getting the sense that everything's marching ahead, and we're looking forward to getting this program finalized and kicked off in a matter of weeks here.
Do you want to touch on the minus results as well? I mean,
Yeah.
they weren't exciting, but you know, you sounded like you sounded more positive than maybe traders that read the release might have been. So maybe give us your sense of where you go from here with this one too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's important to understand that this is a very early pass and really an initial scout drill program into a project that had never seen any drilling in a big alteration footprint right next to a famous Nevada high-grade district. And in a lot of ways, you have to put the Spring Peak in context. That's our third round of drilling into that. There was the second round that ultimately made the high-grade discovery on that disco zone. And, we vectored into that using a scout program previously. So this is, our philosophy and our exploration model is to initially go into these big alteration footprints, drill some wide space scout holes that are sort of proof of concept holes to understand the bigger picture geology in the third dimension, especially a project like this that's never been drilled. And we didn't have any information in the subsurface apart from some geophysics that we did. But the scout drilling is really what marries the geophysics, the targeting, and some, three-dimensional results. And so what we hit in this first program is, well, this is a snapshot of some of the veining that we encountered, which is significant in and of itself. There's no guarantee you go out into an alteration cell like this and hit epithermal veins with all the right textures. You can even, I don't know if the resolution will support it, but you can see bladed quartz after calcite, cryptic banding in here. This is at least the right textures to fairly conclusively show that we're in a boiling epithermal system that persists at depth. So that's one big piece that we were looking for out of this. Another piece is the precious metals themselves. While we didn't hit an ore grade intercept in this first scout program, what we hit is some pretty interesting smoke underneath this sinter, which was one of our vectors early on from surface. We hit a broad interval of quite anomalous silver with a little bit of gold kicking around too. 47 grams of silver over substantial thickness in this, what was originally one of our principal target structures. On the other side of the property, we hit another target structure that had a half a gram of gold in the structure itself, with a little bit of veining around it, and a broad trace element geochemical footprint, both around this hole and in this corridor in general. So that was one of our primary missions, is to take this big land position, this big alteration footprint, and begin to vector into the most prospective alteration signatures that extend into the third dimension, and set ourselves up for some more geophysics, some more targeting, and a second round of drilling that will be, as a result, a lot more precise and targeted, and trying to find the high grade veins that ultimately we think are driving this system.
Okay, so this, I mean, again, we don't know what the partner's going to do, but there will be a program proposed for this as well for this
Yeah, so
year.
we're putting together, a logical follow-up program for this one. And this is a little bit different than Midas, or than Spring Peak rather, where at Spring Peak we had ongoing results through the year. The scout program kind of came in all at once just recently. And so there's a little bit more work in putting our heads together and distilling all this information and determining next steps, but some combination of follow-up geophysics, surface work, and then a more targeted drill program. And one thing that is somewhat significant out here, at least from an operational perspective, is we did this year a mixed diamond drilling and reverse circulation drilling program. The diamond drilling is a lot more expensive. We weren't sure we'd be able to get RC holes down to our target depths, but we were. RC drilling went very well out here. So a follow-up program will likely be proposed as an RC only program, which means a lot more meters and a lot more chances to ultimately get yourself into that high grade corridor.
So I mean, 2024, I mean, Spring Peak, it was last year, is going to be the focus. Maybe some stuff at Midas. You also have, projects that are not part of the joint venture. Um, how's the bank account looking right now?
Yeah, pretty good. So we had a huge year this year that we operated, mostly funded on projects, mostly funded through the Newmont deal, collected a management fee on top of that, and are sitting between 2.5 and 3 million Canadian in the bank right now. And we have, as you said, a big portfolio of projects that we're actively reviewing. There's a couple of them that are kind of coming to the top of the list in terms of drill order for any 100% opportunities should we look to kick off a bigger 100% funded year this year. The final decisions on what we do there will in part be based on how big of a partner-funded program we're running this year, what the market looks like, how long we want to project our internal financing runway. So we're not quite making any decisions on that yet this year, but a couple of these projects are teed up and ready to go for early scout programs and some follow-up programs on a couple projects that have some historic gold in drilling too.
Yeah. What about the name's escaping me? It's on the map on the other news release. The northern block north of Spring Peak. That was
Yes.
a more recent. Did you do much of anything on that this year?
Uh, sorry, did we do anything on that?
Yeah.
So we did. We did a bit of targeting work out there and critically initiated the oh, sorry, I grabbed the wrong release. And critically initiated the permitting process that will allow us to hopefully drill that in late 2024, sort of sequenced following a 2024 Spring Peak program. So
Okay.
that one is keyed up and ready to go for late this year. And the way we're looking at this is, yeah, that will be a logical follow-up to Spring Peak drilling, where we continue to learn exactly how this district works, and then get out there and test the Lodestar project. I mean, one thing to also flag and point out here is that that Lodestar project was not one of the original projects brought into the earn-in. That came about 9 months later. And that's why it's a half a step behind some of these other projects, which were drilled last year. But that also means that the minimum commitment that was part of that original deal has not been fully utilized. So there's a guaranteed minimum commitment at Lodestar of it'll be something like $1.5 million US for drilling out there.
Okay.
So that gives you a pretty good idea of the scope of a program that we're looking at for Lodestar this year.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good update. I mean, drilled a bunch of good holes this year. Market doesn't really care about anything right now, but unfortunately, but I mean the projects are getting advanced, and it sounds like you're looking forward to another pretty big year, maybe bigger than most people realize at this stage. Uh, Another big drill season, lots of drill holes. You've done a bunch of vectoring, so maybe higher high grade hit ratio if you want to put it that way. Uh, I'm looking forward to seeing you in Toronto. Caleb will be presenting at the Metal Investor Forum on the 1st of March. This is still a great story, and I think Headwater is probably one of the best sort of greenfield explorers out there. And my subscribers know I'm a sucker for companies that are willing to look for new stuff, because that's really where you swing for the fences, and that's really where the big wins come, when you're willing to get new targets. And I know you guys you're kind of continuously working on project generation, and wouldn't be that surprising if we see 2 or 3 more projects pop up in the next few months, because you guys are pretty much always doing that.
Yep, no, we're always working on new projects, and as you said, have a big pace of activity, and the market is what it is. I mean, these things are outside of our control.
Yeah.
I even sense a little bit of head hanging on your side, Eric. You need to get your chin up here. We're looking for a big year of exploration and funded by the biggest mining company in the world. And, we're banging away with advancing these projects, which is the key, despite the lack of a positive market for junior explorers. And, things will come back. And when they do, we're still going to be around, and we're going to be advancing projects between now and then.
Yeah, oh no, I'm quite positive about the fact. And man, it sounds like Newmont's going to give you some good budgets, and I like the fact that you guys have got 2.5, $3 million sitting in your own kitty, so there's no you have no pressure to do any financing anytime soon, which is obviously a big plus. Headwater Gold, that's HWG on the Canadian exchange, and HWAUF QB. Great exploration story, strong technical team, always kind of coming up with new projects, and they drilled a bunch of good holes this year. And right now it's pretty cheap. So I think it's a good time to be taking a hard look at this as we start down the runway to 2024 exploration season. Thanks for coming by and giving us the run through, Caleb.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Eric.